All right, this is Paul with Pod Clubhouse with Derek Phillips, otherwise known as Billy Riggins to most of our fans, and Stacey Oristano, known as Mindy Riggins, Mindy Colette to our fans. Thanks for joining me today here at the closing day, ATX Festival, finally back together in person.
Thank you for having us.
So you guys are new to the podcast game, kind of.
Yeah, it's weird. I mean, we've been doing this almost a year now.
Oh my God.
Almost a year. So I felt like a complete and total utter novice when we started, and now I'm like, yeah, I got this. It's old hat. But I don't know that I've got it. But I feel like we have a better idea of what we're doing at this point.
It's gotten easier. I'm
Yeah.
a podcast junkie, though. I devour podcasts. So it was already something that I was super familiar with. And then to be a part of the world made me very happy.
I have to ask, is there like a John Galt figure in the shadows going around to shows and finding the stars and saying, hey, Michael Imperioli, do you want to start a Sopranos podcast? Scrubs guys, do you want to start a Scrubs podcast?
I'm sure there is. You know, in our particular case, one of my best friends, a guy named Steve Walters, who was also on Friday Night Lights with me, went to Baylor University with me. Steve is also a writer, and Steve's been in the podcast world for the past 6-7 years, maybe. Steve wrote a podcast called 1865, which had a huge following. So Steve kind of knows this world, and Steve is the one who approached Stacey and I about doing this podcast originally, because frankly, I didn't know a lot about podcasts. I didn't listen to a lot of podcasts. So originally I was a little tentative about this, because it's not really my forte. I've never been a host of anything. So
You're on-screen talent.
Right. But that doesn't necessarily translate to being good in this world. You know? I don't know that I am any good at this, but as I said before, I feel like we've gotten better with time, and I feel like it's gotten a little more natural. Yeah.
The flow. We understand what we're doing now.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's become really popular. I keep looking and finding more shows that now have a rewatch podcast with cast members from it. But I was saying on stage too, like West Wing Weekly really started that whole.
Yeah.
That was the first?
Yeah, that's of people who were in the show to do a rewatch with. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. We don't have anybody in our podcast from any TV show, so we look at all the various trends of who's the top shows, and it feels like cheating a little bit.
Yeah. But that's kind of what we did. Is my buddy Steve, as I said, reached out to me, and when he was explaining the concept to me, he said, "There's a great podcast called West Wing Weekly. Check that one out. Check out the Sopranos podcast with Michael Imperioli." And those were the two podcasts that I kind of listened to religiously to kind of get an idea of what the concept was. Because, as I said, this was a foreign concept to me when I first started out. And then after listening to those guys, I was like, okay, well, now I can understand what the format of our show would be roughly. Obviously, we stole from, they always say steal from the best, so that's what we did.
To be fair, we actually got permission to steal from Rishike from West Wing Weekly. He gave us our sign-off to say, clear eyes, full hearts, can't lose. So I feel like not stealing, they handed it over to us.
Inspired by.
Yeah.
Do you find that normally with this kind of podcast for us, it's called Interview with a Podcast, where we find other podcasters, talk to them about their podcast, and we ask them stuff like, what are your demographics, that kind of thing. But for you guys, are you finding that you're picking up new Friday Night Lights fans as you're going, or is this just old hands that want to know more?
No, I mean, that's the thing with this show. I mean, you talk about like a glass of red wine having legs, and it's the same thing with Friday Night Lights. It's just the legs on this show, it blows me away. There's a new audience yearly because it's on Netflix or because it's on Amazon, and there's always new audience coming to this show. And with that new audience comes new people wanting to learn more about this show. And so this podcast has been, plus the word of mouth. I think
that's how podcasts spread, though.
Yeah.
Mostly word of mouth.
Yeah.
But then also, unfortunately, we were sort of locked down and in a pandemic, and everyone was looking for a new binge, and we got a bunch of new viewers just because the world was a little on fire, and it was another one of the feel-good shows that you could go to.
Yeah. I mean, despite its time and place, it still doesn't feel dated necessarily. Whenever I recruit new viewers into Friday Night Lights, they say, wasn't that the football show? And it's like, well, I mean, there's football in it.
Yeah.
You can't deny that.
That's what freaks me out when I know people from Ireland and England who watch the show, and I'm like, but your football is totally different from our football.
Yeah.
Still love it.
The only time it feels dated to me is when we see like a cut to a computer screen or a
Right.
cell phone.
A gigantic CRT.
That's right. Yeah.
Right? You're like, oh my god, just text that person.
But there are subjects and there are issues that they're bringing up on a regular basis on Friday Night Lights that you're just like, wow, how did our writers... How are our writers so ahead of the time? 16 years ago, there's writing stuff that was just relevant.
It's
today.
still so relevant.
And it's weird rewatching it because you remember those moments, but then also you're rewatching it going, wow, I totally forgot how poignant this storyline was. Yeah.
Do you have an easy time finding your co-hosts or co-stars to bring back on?
I mean, mostly every person that we've reached out to has agreed to do it. The difficult thing for us is trying to figure out where we want to put them in the shows, because that's been the hardest thing for me.
Yeah, we want it to be an episode specific to that character that we can really talk about.
Sure.
But then we've had other, like we had our props master and our first AD and our producer, so those we can kind of fit in anywhere, and they have the best stories. They have the good stories.
But that's been really difficult. I know, especially when we were trying to find guests for the first season, it's like, oh, well, Liz Michael would be perfect in this episode, and then we watched the episode and we're like, but you know who else would be perfect for this episode is so it's literally trying to figure out where to place them just to have good stuff to talk about. And when it's a great guest who's been on a ton of episodes of Friday Night Lights, it makes it a little bit easier because in that sense you can just talk about your overall arc of the show as opposed to this specific episode.
And so now after today, Brad's our number one. He's a 3-time repeat.
Yeah.
Annie's 2. Brad
He's
is
done 2.
3.
Brad's done 3. Yeah.
They'll be back.
Yeah.
Are there our standard format for our shows are that we don't recap, we discuss the show. We'd like to try to think of character motivations, predictions, that kind of stuff. We figure you've already seen the show.
I've already seen the show.
I have not.
Stacey has not seen the show all the way through, so that also was something that made our show, I think, a little bit unique, is that Stacey's getting to experience all this for the first time. So Stacey doesn't know where a lot of these storylines are going, whereas I have watched the show, and I know exactly where the storylines are going. So Stacey watches episode by episode, so she's coming to it with very fresh eyes, because she doesn't know where all these storylines are going. She knows where her storylines are going, but yeah.
But I'll ask you, I'll be like, this thing that's happening now, does that stay around for long? And you're like, no, don't worry.
Or she'll get really angry in moments
okay.
and be like, I do not like the way that Coach is handling this situation. I'm like, calm down.
Give it a minute.
Give it a minute. He will admit the error of his ways in the next episode.
Right.
You just need to take it.
Always true.
So she's very emotionally attached to it, which makes it fun for me because I know where it goes. Yeah.
Have you ever needed to say, I'm not a stripper, but I play one on TV?
I don't have enough fingers and toes to tell you how many times. It's also getting typecast into a role where people think that's all you can do, or there were times when we were shooting at the landing strip and like the guys that were in the background were asking me like what time my actual shift at the
Oh my God.
I'm like, I did actually scream one time and yelled and told them I was a classically trained Shakespearean actress and that I didn't work at the landing strip.
Sure, that went over well.
I don't know how that went.
Right.
The crew liked it.
Were they like, they all are, actually. She's going to law school.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
Let's see. I mean, I don't want to give you the normal rundown of favorite moments on the shows. You guys have asked been asked that and answered that kind of stuff like that. Has there been any moments on the podcast that are like, you know what? If you have an episode to listen to, go back to this one and listen to that.
We all cried during Liz Michaels' interview. Yumi and Liz were crying at one point. It was intense. Intense in like a perfectly beautiful, emotional way.
Yeah.
I loved that.
Yeah. Talking about her relationship with Smash and her husband on the show, and Smash's father being gone and what that moment meant for her. It was, there's been a lot of, I really loved having Taylor on the show. He's just
fun.
so like, I mean, I don't know if you guys are seeing this, but I've got this mustache right now for a gig that I've been working on, and the minute I got on the show, he goes, "What is on your face?"
For 5 minutes, it was talk of the mustache.
So 5 minutes of him ripping my mustache and just a lot of it is it's just I didn't know what to expect when we started this podcast, I'm going to be honest with you. And it's been this really wonderful walk down memory lane with all these people that I love. And so every episode's been really kind of special because you're getting to watch this show, because I haven't watched the show in 13, 14 years. And so I'm doing this rewatch of the show that I loved, and then getting to reconnect with these people that you know, over time, sometimes you just don't talk as much as you used to.
Sure.
You know?
Yeah.
So it's been really wonderful to have them back on the show and just to
And even
talk to
find new
them.
things out. Like, I would never sit. Jesse Plemons and I were really good friends and hung out, but I was never like, tell me about your audition story and how you got. But now I know it.
Yeah.
And finding all these new things about these people that I love.
It's also kind of weird because they're the kind of questions that I wanted to ask people when we were working together.
Yeah, but it feels weird,
But
right?
It felt weird.
It's so like
You know,
actory.
like, so how did you get this job? You know, what was your audition experience like? But that's the wonderful thing, though, is that we're in this position to ask the questions that I've always wanted to ask these people that I love, but I didn't want to be a weirdo.
Right.
You know?
You're kind of in friend mode.
Yeah. You know, how did you get into acting? I mean, I want to know those things. You know, Jesse's always kind of blown my mind. I'm glad that you brought Jesse up because he's such a talented actor. But like, my first question to him was, "You're from Mart, Texas." I've been to Mart, Texas. It's literally like a one-light town. How does a guy from Mart, Texas, end up an Oscar nominee? How did you get into acting? What was your first moment?
It's a well-known artistic mecca here.
The artistic mecca that is Mart. And I went to school in Waco, which was like 7 miles away from Mart. I want to know those things, you know? So we're getting to ask the questions that we've always wanted to ask under the guise of having a podcast, you know?
We finally got it.
That DVD set that I gave you guys earlier, when Taylor was here a couple years ago with Waco, he had just been David Koresh. I caught him as he was running into the Stephen F. And he obligingly turned around and came back and signed it. And my connection with him is slight. It's that we have the same birthday, April 8th. It's a lot of people have this birthday for some reason. Katie Sackhoff has that same birthday.
And I've worked with Katie Sackhoff as well.
I saw it on Longmire. And
Adrienne Palicki and I have plays Tyra, my sister. We have the same birthday.
really?
Yeah, we always do it together.
So I mention it, and because he doesn't say anything, he's just like signing away. I said, you know, we have the same birthday, April 8th. And he goes, damn right.
I have an interesting story about Katie Sackhoff and Taylor and I, because I was in Santa Fe shooting Longmire while Taylor was in Santa Fe shooting Waco. And so we all got together one night and had drinks, and it happened to be on Taylor and Katie's birthday. So we
Really?
had like
And yours.
Yeah, and your birthday as well.
Yes, that's right.
Sorry, your invitation got lost in the mail. I'm not sure what happened. But yeah, Katie was great to work with. Kitch was great to work with. I'm 10 days after both of them. But your birthday is the same birthday. They have the same birthday as Adrienne Palicki.
Yeah. And George Clooney. So
That's
we're trying to befriend.
Trying to
I don't know.
Trying to
with that one?
befriend him.
We've got an Arquette. We've got Katie Sackhoff. We've got Jennifer Morrison's boyfriend, Gerardo Salasco, who was also in Battleship with Taylor and Jesse, and one of the Jasons, Kane Hodder. It's a big birthday.
That's awesome.
Saying that makes me think. I think the next generation of 6 Degrees of Kevin Bacon is going to be a 6 Degrees of Taylor Kitsch. But he does. He's like around everywhere.
That's cool.
I remember I was on set a couple years back. I was doing the Call of Duty video game that just came out, Call of Duty Vanguard. And so we've been doing motion capture, and the motion capture guy, I walk in one day and there's all these balloons. It was my birthday. And I walk in on my birthday and there's all these balloons. Happy birthday. And I'm like, dude, you guys. I'm like, how did you guys even know? And they go, what? And I go, it's my birthday. How did you even know?
Oh no.
They got the balloons for the sound guy. I've never felt worse in my life.
Why?
Play it cool, Derek.
Yeah, play it cool. So this past year, I was working on another video game. I'm not allowed to talk about this one, but the same sound guy. And I go, oh, happy birthday, by the way. And he's like, because it was about 2 days before his birthday. I said, I may not see you, but happy birthday. He's like, how'd you know it was my birthday? I was like, because 2 years ago, I showed up and you had all these balloons and nobody got me anything. I didn't get a cake, I didn't get shit. But anyway.
That's a great story. Well, guys, that's all I got for you guys today. Thank you for joining me. It's been a great pleasure talking to you. I've seen you guys. I was there a couple years ago when you guys, I don't know about you, but you ordered hamburgers at
I did at Drunk History.
At Drunk History.
Yeah.
I remember because you were sitting with other Hollywood luminaries and kept looking back at the door. I was like, what are they doing? It's Hollywood people. And then you brought in the hamburgers. I was like, thank you, because we were all starving. I think you probably saw the normies like us just devouring
There's
handfuls.
just also like I know like with Derek Waters and all those guys, and like when you drink that much, you're gonna need a little snack.
That was a great night.
It was good.
Colin Hanks was funny. It was a good night.
Yeah.
Anyway, thank you
Festival
guys.
in general is just so much fun, and I'm always excited to come back.
I've been here since Gilmore Girls, so not the whole time, but quite a while.
Yeah,
It's my favorite time
It's
of
nice
year.
to be back in person, not having to do it via Zoom calls, and it's just good.
I think that was the year they did the Dawson reading,
Yeah.
and that was my first taste of how fun this event could
That
be.
was wild.
The gender swapped
Yes.
characters
Yeah.
and all that. Anyway, thank you guys again.
Thank you
Thank
so much
you.
for having us.